Rachel Amber is impossible to define. She's a complete enigma. She's a million different things to everybody who knew her, and everybody knew her, and yet she's also nothing at all at the same time. Rachel's not the first character written like this, clearly taking inspiration from Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks and possibly others like Alison DeLaurentis in Pretty Little Liars. But Rachel Amber's character died long before Mark Jefferson got the chance to kill her. Life is Strange Before the Storm was a prequel game to the original Life is Strange game, giving us a look into Chloe Price's life before Max Caulfield returned to Arcadia Bay in the first game. It also gave us a glimpse into Rachel and Chloe's relationship, one that was all too slippery from Max's perspective. And while the game has plenty of adoring fans and positive aspects about it, I really do believe it was the death of Rachel Amber as we knew her, or as we didn't know her, in the original game. Whether you're a fan of the prequel or not, the writing of this game poses a lot of problems for the overall Arcadia-based story in the Life is Strange franchise, especially when it comes to continuity errors and plot holes. It's almost like someone wrote the game using just the wiki, if even, to figure out who the characters were and what the plot should be. Rachel Amber is written in such a way that makes it hard to believe the writers knew what was going on in the first game at all. This sounds very cynical, I know, and I don't mean to come off that way, but I'll explain to you what I mean. Rachel Amber in the first Life is Strange game is a girl gone missing Laura Palmer style on April 22nd, 2013, and then the events of the first Life is Strange game start on October 7th of the same year. That means that Rachel Amber had been missing for about 6 months by the time Max arrives to town and starts getting into business with Chloe to find out what happened to Rachel. Throughout the game, it is pretty clearly implied that, well, everybody in some way or another has experience with the elusive Rachel Amber. Nobody seems to really care that she's gone. Chloe's the one who made and put up all of those missing posters, and to everybody else, her disappearance is hardly brought up. Chloe's mother Joyce mentions that she hopes Rachel is off in California somewhere halfway through the game, and you can find a note about it in Rachel's student file in the previous episode, but that's about it. And then in Before the Storm, we get to learn about Rachel's family. Most importantly, we learn that her father's the district attorney. District attorneys represent the district or county's prosecution system in criminal cases and trials. They are one of the higher up positions in the criminal justice system and have a lot of power because of this. Rachel's father James clearly has no problem using his power for his own benefit throughout the prequel game. But apparently, by the time Life is Strange happens, he doesn't care enough about his own daughter to use some of that pull to get her found. Yes, they have a rocky relationship, and you could make the excuse that they'd been arguing before she disappeared, but I find it really hard to believe that he'd use that as an excuse to never do anything about her disappearance, especially since many of his less than moral actions in the prequel game are under the guise of protecting her, i.e., hiding her birth mother. This argument is also inferred by fans and never implied at all, which puts it on even worse standing. If her father was so powerful in the criminal justice system specifically, why does Rachel stay missing for 6 months straight, with little to no investigation mentioned at all? The best explanation for this, in a more meta sense, is that the two games were made by different development companies. The first was made by Don't Nod Entertainment, and the prequel, Deck 9. The continuity errors remind me a lot of the sense of confusion everybody had when the Five Nights at Freddy's games transitioned from the main developer Scott Cawthon to Steel Wolf Studios' hands. Scott Cawthon mentioned himself in an interview his mistakes when relaying the plot he wanted Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach in particular to have to Steel Wolf, and how the game turned out was a result of him being too vague with these instructions and a misunderstanding with him and the developers. Maybe something similar happened with Deck 9 and Don't Nod. The miscommunication between the two teams could also explain the lack of magic surrounding Rachel Amber in the second game as well, for lack of a better word. In the first, she wasn't a character at all, but more so a plot device. She loomed over everyone in Arcadia Bay, and even Max Caulfield could feel her presence, having never even met the girl. Very Laura Palmer inspired, like I said. This was in such a way that the final storm at the end of the game is theorized to be Rachel Amber taking her revenge out on the town for what happened to her. In this way, Rachel Amber serves as a brilliant plot device. It's not her personally pushing Max and Chloe to find her, but her relationship with everyone instead. She was Chloe's angel, she was Frank Bauer's lioness, she was too cool for the Vortex Club, yet she partied like a fiend. She was Victoria's one-sided rival, she was Mark Jefferson's muse, she was the soon-to-be starlet that ran off, she was a victim of too many evil men in Arcadia Bay, etc., etc. It's all so confusing and contradictory that it only adds to her image. And then in Before the Storm, I personally really dislike how this mystery is sort of ruined. She is quite literally the opposite. She's just a girl. She likes acting, she likes concerts, she likes the stars, she cares about her family, and people care about her. Yes, she's a bit of a manic pixie dream girl, but she's still very human. Too human. Some people argue that Chloe is an unreliable narrator since she sees Chloe with these rose tinted glasses and is very biased because of this. However, as biased as she may be, there's still objective truths there to who Rachel is as a person. Chloe wasn't just imagining Rachel's family or her upbringing or Rachel's hobbies. Her perspective could be skewed, but there's still an objective underlying truth to Rachel in Before the Storm. To put it very simply, Rachel Amber goes from everything and everywhere while being nobody and nowhere to just some girl who hates her hometown. But is there even a way that they could have fixed this? I'm going to start with a more realistic answer. If the game had never been made, Rachel Amber's writing would have been better off, as well as the overall story as a whole. However, gun to my head, there are a couple ways they could have changed the game to make this mystery tied to Rachel even in this prequel. First, it could still be a prequel about Chloe, but instead take place right after Max left, or intervals between then and when she met Rachel. The final scene could be them meeting the first time for a more compelling ending. This could also continue on that phenomenon that happened in the first game, where Max heard a million different things about Rachel, but now it's Chloe hearing them. Rachel stars in the high school play. She hangs out with the Vortex Club. Victoria and Nathan and all of the popular kids Chloe has a disdain for clearly admire or envy Rachel. She's a teacher's pet. And then Chloe sees a glimpse of her at a Firewalk concert. Maybe Frank Bowers lets her name slip. Chloe could see Rachel skipping class, or David stalking her, or even when she starts the forest fire during her emotional breakdown. She seems like everything Chloe would detest in a person, but at the same time, she's still so alike to her in all of the ways that matter. Rachel is the lamp, and Chloe is the moth. Another route the game could have gone down is having the game take on a more nonlinear plot. Every episode could be about a different point in Chloe's life. In one episode, she and Rachel are in love and at the junkyard, and nothing could go wrong. And in another, they're arguing, and Rachel's more Vortex Club member than Firewalk fan, if that makes sense. A detail they could have added to either of these alternate plot lines for Before the Storm could be giving Rachel the Ethan Winters treatment. For those of you who don't know, throughout the Resident Evil game, the developers never let the player see Ethan Winters' face. He looks away from the camera when he's the player character. His face is always covered in cutscenes. He's a ghost companion to his daughter, and so on and so on. I think it would be really interesting if they did something similar with Rachel in Before the Storm, although it doesn't have to do with her face. Maybe it's her voice, for example. But these are just ideas off the top of my head. I'm sure the writers had a lot on their plate when making Before the Storm, and I don't mean to spit on their hard work, but I really do wish that Rachel Amber's air of mystery had been preserved throughout the prequel game. And despite all of the critiques in this video, I really do appreciate a few parts of Before the Storm, even relating to Rachel Amber. The final scene of her phone buzzing when Chloe calls her while Rachel is trapped in the dark room is incredibly haunting. It's honestly the one scene that works with the humanization of Rachel Amber. You are, all of a sudden, very brutally reminded of how her story will end, after the entire game showing you that Rachel really was just a girl. But that's all I have to ramble about Life is Strange for now. If you enjoy these video game analyses, please leave a like to show me to make more of them. I have multiple other Life is Strange videos in the works, so subscribe if you don't want to miss them. That's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching.